What's up, everybody? Doug here, and new episode of the Night Ride Home podcast here, and it's another one. It's just gonna be me this week, but that'll be okay because we've got some reviews to talk about. Two really good games, and I'm glad about that because I felt like the last time we did an episode, yeah, I felt like I was being really negative. So I'm happy. I'm happy that we've got some really great games to talk about in this episode. But before we get into it, a few things to talk about. We have so many reviews up on our WordPress page right now. Things have just been really just kicking off lately on the Night Ride Home podcast. We've got so many reviews. I was actually just talking to Leo that we hit a point where there were no review codes in the inbox. Then we got a lot that came in. I'm talking about the two that are on my roster. Leo just got another one. He's got a review coming out whenever the next episode that he's on. We're gonna have a review that he just did. So I mean, there's just a lot to talk about. But after these reviews were published, I was like, all right, cool. My review slate's open again. It's clean. So I went ahead. I bought Alan Wake 2. I got GeForce Now set up. Just ready to fully dive into this game. And then what happens? Boom. 2 more views pop in. But that being said, I am really excited to look into these games. It's just one of those things where there's some backroom stuff that needs to happen before I accept the keys. But we do have more reviews coming. But yeah, on this week's episode, we've got the Invincible and You Will Die Here Tonight. Both games that, we're going to start off with the Invincible. The Invincible, I think I might have spoken briefly about this game during the Steam Next Fest that happened over the summer. It basically, the premise, it was one of those games where, for events like Steam Next Fest, you kind of want a list. So you look up, what should I play for the Steam Next Fest? So I looked into it. The Invincible was on a couple lists. I watched the trailer, looked incredible. But then when I pulled it up on the Steam Deck, I guess the demo just wasn't really optimized for Steam Deck play. I had played a little bit of the demo, not a whole lot, on a PC that I had at the time, but again, at the time I did not have a great PC setup. The Steam Deck was my main driver. But this time, the code came out. I got a code, which again, not expecting to have gotten a code for this game because this is a decent sized game. So like for bigger games, I'm always excited to get those codes, and I wasn't expecting to get this code. When I got it, super excited. So yeah, I downloaded it on my new PC, and I downloaded it on the Steam Deck. I started up on the Steam Deck expecting it to not work, but I'm happy to say that this game runs so smooth. I bumped it all the way up to the epic settings and still had a great experience the entire time. The battery life, I will say that this is just one of those games where you're probably going to get a little over an hour of game time when you play this title. Yeah, a little over an hour. That being said, this game, basically, you are Dr. Yasna, and you're part of a team that is going onto the planet. Well, you're coming back from a space mission, and you wake up on this planet called Regis 3. And basically, you have no recollection of how you got there, and you're just trying to piece together what happened to you. And you go on about, I want to say my Steam clock, it clocked me about 5.5 hours, which we'll talk about the game length in a little bit here. But yeah, I think that this is the perfect length of this game. You're throughout the campaign, I guess you can call it a campaign. Throughout your playtime in this game, you're basically exploring the surface of the planet. You've got these tools that you can use, and hold on one second. I'm having to deal with some traffic stuff here. Okay, we're good. Now, so yeah, the Invincible. You're exploring the planet, and you've got these tools, right? And you've got all the tools have like this retro slash future, like it's a retro but still futuristic look, if that makes sense. Like the best way I can describe the tech in this game is that it looks like what people in the 50s thought the future would be. You know what I mean? You've got a detector that basically it shows you metal surfaces, and there is a journal where you can see all the maps of the area, and basically it's how you navigate throughout the planet, because there are no waypoints, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've got, so we've talked about the metal detector, we've talked about the journal. There is also what's the word I'm looking for? It's not really, it's kind of like a scanner. It basically shows you like where other people are in like relation to you. So like you pull it out, and there's like, if there's like a person behind a cliff or something, you can see like a little dot blinking over that in that direction. And there's one more that I feel like I'm blanking on, a telescope basically. You can basically look through it, and it's a telescope. It's exactly what it sounds like. I don't want to, like, I'm not going to spoil any story components here, other than what, the basic premise, which is what I've told you. Basically, all you need to know is the story in this game is absolutely fantastic. It is a adaptation of a science fiction novel by the same name. It's called The Invincible. I'm blanking on the author's name right now, but you can easily just look up The Invincible video game, and they actually, I'm sure you'll find the novel. And the best way that I can hype this game up is I can tell you that the story is so good that as soon as I was done with it, I went and added it to my Audible queue. So that is like a book that I'm going to read in the very near future. The moment-to-moment gameplay is best described as a walking simulator. You're going to be doing a lot of walking, and I would say that it's fun walking. For the most part, because unless you get lost, which is very possible, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you always have some kind of conversation going. You have a dialogue going, mainly, and she walking around talking to herself. It's like, oh yeah, there's a rock here, there's a rock there, and I can use these two rocks to figure out that my position is here on the map. But there's also always some kind of dialogue going. Basically, as you're walking, you're exploring the planet. The voice acting is top notch. I went and looked up the voice actors after I was done. I'm trying to avoid story spoilers, so that's why I'm kind of being as vague as possible. But there are moments in the story where I assume you can deviate and get different endings. I'm not 100% sure on the different endings aspect of it, but there are parts in the game where you can make choices. I haven't done my second playthrough yet, but I'm assuming that those choices will lead to different playthroughs. Those choices would end with a different ending. Not sure on that, but it's something to keep in mind, that you can try that whenever you pick this game up. One thing that I will say, and it's pretty much the only negative I have for this game, you don't always know what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you have a vague idea, like you can always pull up the journal and it'll be like, hey, you gotta go here. But when it says you've gotta go here, it doesn't show where here is. Like, there's not a waypoint, there's not a marker on a map. You're basically having to figure that out on your own. And that led to some very frustrating moments where the game wasn't necessarily clear on what I was supposed to be doing. So I kind of just walked around, and there were segments where I was walking around for 20 to 30 minutes, and you're on a desolate planet, so 20 to 30 minutes of walking around can be kind of dull. And what that leads to is you have these moments where the game kind of doesn't know what to do with you. So the doctor will be like, oh yeah, I guess I should kind of be going over here, but I'm not sure and other times she'd be like, "Oh, this mission is dragging," and at that moment I was like, "Yeah, it kind of is." It kind of gets to the point where the cluelessness of it makes the game feel longer than it is. Like I said, my playthrough is about 5.5 hours, but those segments where I didn't know what I was doing made the game feel very long. And this isn't really a story spoiler, but I felt that I was nearing the conclusion of the game. Like, I felt like I was at the last part of it, like the last, I guess, mission you could call it. And then I got to the section that was in the demo, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we've got a lot to go here. So, other than that, I mean, this game is it just fires on all cylinders. If it would have just had a waypoint system, I would, if I had to give this game a rating, I mean, it would shoot up to like a game of the year contender, I would say, in a year that's already stacked. But that lack of waypoints really does drop it down, because, like I said, it just leads to a lot of cluelessness, and that's not really a game. That's not really something you want for a game like this. So overall, The Invincible is a fantastic narrative adventure. I played it entirely on my Steam Deck. I didn't really try it on a PC, but I mean, if it runs on Steam Deck, it's probably going to run on any sub-decent gaming PC. So check it out. It's available on, I think okay, so I'm recording this on November 2nd. So I think the game comes out November 6th, maybe the 7th. So, I mean, by the time this podcast episode comes out, you should be able to buy it, and you absolutely should. Next up on the agenda, we've got a game called You Will Die Here Tonight, alright? So, I saw this game on the site where I request my game codes, and it looked just like a super throwback to Resident Evil, classic Resident Evil. And I showed it to Leo, and we were both like, man, this game looks great. I put in the game, like the request for the game key, and I kind of just forgot about it. And then I got the email saying that we were granted a key, and I was so stoked to play this game. And again, this is a game that I played entirely on Steam Deck. Especially if you like Resident Evil 1, this is a love letter to you. Like, I can tell the developer loves Resident Evil 1. Like, just in the aspect where the opening section, when you first get into the mansion, the first 2 rooms that you explore look like carbon copies of the first 2 rooms of the Resident Evil 1 mansion. It is so great. And how it goes on from there, there's no voice acting in this game. It's all text-based. But it doesn't need it, right? You get into it, you have like a little section where you're meeting all the members of Area Squad, and this is important later on, that you really pay attention to the differences in all these characters, right? Do I have a nosebleed? No, okay. Yeah, I thought I had a nosebleed because basically the weather in Louisiana changes left to right on a daily basis. So like the weather's been going from like 80 degrees plus to 30, 40 degree weather, so like my sinuses are all over the place. Sorry, that's just, but you know what? Honestly, if you've been listening to the Night Ride Home podcast this long, you're used to tangents. You're used to it. Anyway, so you go through the tutorial, you kind of learn the quirks of all the team members, and then you go on your first, the only mission. You go out and you have to hunt down this guy for reasons that I won't spoil, and I'm not going to spoil how this mission turns out, but basically the game really opens up here. And you have the character that you start the mission with, and you end up getting separated from everybody else. And the main mission is that you have to get out of the mansion now. The way you get out of the mansion is basically you have a goal that you have to accomplish, and this leads to more goals that you have to accomplish that first goal. This sounds confusing, I know, I'm sorry. But basically, as you're going through the mansion, the best way I can describe this game is it's if Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color was done right, where you have the top-down camera and you're exploring the mansion, and when you run into zombies or any other kind of enemy, you go into a first-person perspective, and you have to shoot the enemies as they come. And it's survival horror, so you have a certain amount of ammo that you have at your disposal, and you can pick up healing items throughout the game as you explore. But the real twist of this game is when you die, and trust me, you will. In this game, you will die. You're probably gonna die a lot, honestly, but it's not like a Souls game where dying is, and Souls community, you can come for me all you want. Dying in a Souls game is an act of punishment, right? Don't you do it, car. I saw you wanted to. Basically, this car almost cut me off, sorry. Basically, when you die, you get the screen saying you have died, and you're taken to another screen where you see the other 5 squad members of Ares squad. You pick the next one that you want to use, and you get placed back in the mansion. When you go back through the mansion, any enemies that you've killed stay dead. Any items you pick up stay picked up. So if you picked up a lot of 9mm pistol ammo, that ammo is still gone. But the twist is, if you find, depending on how you died, you can still find the corpse of the previous member, or even the zombified version of it. So like if you got killed by a zombie, you can walk around, like if you go back to where you died, you can find the zombified version of that character. You have to kill them to take them down, and then you can loot it to get all your items back. And speaking of zombification, there is a chance of you getting bit by, like if you get bit in combat, there is a chance that you will get a timer put on you. And this is embarrassing, but I never made it long enough after getting bit to see if you just die and get zombified. I've always died beforehand, so I'm just assuming that is what happens. That after that timer runs out, then you turn into a zombie. Just a really cool game mechanic. Every character has different traits to them. Like there are 2 older guys in the team. They move a lot slower, but one of them is super strong. So like if a zombie grabs onto you, you can break the hold a lot easier. There's only one guy on the team that can upgrade the weapon. So like if you pick up an upgrade kit, if you're using that character, you can upgrade your guns with those upgrade kits, but you can only do it with that particular character. So it's just a really cool game mechanic, the dying part of it. There are puzzles that are really creative. I thought that basically the way that you solve these puzzles, a lot of times you have to open up your menu, which has your map, and it has your journal, which catalogs all the visual cues that you've picked up on. So there's one puzzle in particular where you have to look at 2 different visual cues that you've picked up on throughout the game, and you have to cross-reference those 2 pieces of material together, and that gives you the answer to the puzzle. Just really cool stuff, and you really want to make sure that you are not just guessing on these puzzles, because there are certain puzzles that if you guess, it will kill you immediately, and there's no way to block it. Like, it's not like a thing where if you miss the puzzle, you can hit a button to dodge something from coming at you. If you mess that puzzle up, you're gonna die, like immediately. And in some instances, in extremely hilarious contexts. The boss fights, they're cool. It's nothing too crazy. But while we're talking about combat, you've got your guns, and then you've also got these side pieces of equipment. I don't want to really spoil one of the things that you can get. But basically, those are things that keep you from using your ammo. Like you've got a knife that if you don't want to use your ammo, you can take the chance to kind of stab at the zombies coming at you, and that's a cool little addition. But I think it's really important to, while we're on the combat aspect of it, the graphics and the sound design of this game are incredible. And like when you're walking around the mansion part, I think it looks the best because you're looking around this room, you can see like the glowing eyes of the zombies coming from the darkness, and like lightning will flash, and you'll like see them coming at you. It's just really good. Like I really like the way this game looks. And the boss fights are really good because they have a health bar, and if you die in a boss fight, oh, real quick, you have infinite ammo and the pistol at least. I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't unlock any of the other guns in the playthrough because when I finally figured out where the shotgun was, there's just a whole thing that I had to do. Excuse me. There's a whole thing I had to do, and I didn't feel like walking all the way back, so I just gave up on unlocking any of the other guns. Excuse me. But yeah, so as you're whittling down the boss's health, you've got infinite ammo. If you say you get the boss down to half health and then you die, then you get the chance to come back on your next character, and you start at half health in the boss. So at the very least, you can corpse run these bosses like you do, like you used to have to do in like WoW when you're getting to Stormwind for the first time. Great times. But yeah, the one thing that I will say that I didn't necessarily love is that sometimes the boss fight mechanic would kind of glitch up a little. And what I mean by that is, for instance, there is an enemy where after you kill it, there are smaller mobs that come after you, and if you die on those mobs, the boss fight starts back at full health. I did not like that. I thought that was crap. I think that at the very least they could have made it to where the boss starts at like a hair of health left. You kill it and then the mobs come back out. Also, I kind of wish that there was a checkpoint method, I guess you could say, to where because in that same boss fight that I was just speaking of, after you died, you would start like all the way across the mansion, and you would have to walk all the way back over. And if you died a second time, it was just like extra, salt on the wound. You had to walk all the way back to the mansion again, and it just kind of. It was the one part of the game that kind of just left a dull, like a sour taste in my mouth. So, but I mean, other than that, those are the only two negatives I have about this otherwise stellar game. It's on the shorter side. It is a fantastic horror game, perfect for Halloween. I'm definitely going to replay it, especially if you love Resident Evil. Especially if you love Resident Evil 1, this is a fantastic horror game. You will not die. Oh, sorry. You will die here tonight. It checks the boxes that it wants to check. That being said, guys, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. Like I said, we've got Leo's got 2 reviews on his plate right now. I've got 2 reviews on my plate. So we've got more content coming for you guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.